realm. Do you know what the realm is? It's the 1,000 blades of Aegon's enemies. A story we agreed to tell each other over and over till we forget that it's a lie.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back for another A Song of Ice and Fire video. In this video, I will be discussing something George R. R. Martin has been working on that has absolutely nothing to do with the Winds of Winter. Now, the main reason why I'm even making this video is because I really want to know how this makes all of you feel. What do you think about George R. R. Martin working on something else that isn't his next book? I would love it if you give me your honest thoughts down below. Now, as you all know, George R. R. Martin has been writing The Winds of Winter for over a decade. This is a book that should have been released well before Game of Thrones ever ended. Unfortunately, this has led many fans to believe we will never see this book. A lot of fans think George is working on everything but The Winds of Winter. Now, I mentioned that because George has said on a number of occasions he will not be working on anything else until he gets the next book done. For those of you who don't remember, let me show you something he said back in 2019 when House of the Dragon was officially given the green light by HBO. On George R. R. Martin's Not a Blog website, he said he would not be writing any of the episodes for House of the Dragon because The Winds of Winter was still his main focus. What he actually said was, "Let me make this perfectly clear. I'm not taking on any scripts until I have finished and delivered The Winds of Winter. Winter is still coming, and Winds remains my priority as much as I'd love to write an episode of House of the Dragon." Now, given that George is very familiar with the source material, considering he is the one who created it, as well as how great of a writer he is, I don't think it would have been a big deal if George did write an episode of House of the Dragon. It would not have taken him that long to write just one episode, but I do understand him not wanting to get distracted while he is finishing The Winds of Winter. He basically said he would not let anything get in his way of finishing this book. But has he stuck by this ever since he gave us that update? Well, I don't think so.
Aren't you supposed to be finishing The Winds of Winter this entire time? Not to add to the chorus of what has taken so long, but this is a 700-page detour.
As a matter of fact, he has been writing something that has absolutely nothing to do with A Song of Ice and Fire, let alone The Winds of Winter. Now, I don't know how many of you saw this, but let me show you an article that was released yesterday. The headline states, George R. R. Martin's next project is confirmed to be released before The Winds of Winter. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, George R. R. Martin has actually been working on a video game, as well as all the other things he has been working on instead of The Winds of Winter. This article says he has been writing the overarching mythos on Elden Ring, the first video game he has ever written for. It sounds like George has been writing the story, themes, and maybe even the dialogue. Now, speaking further about George R. R. Martin's involvement in the video game, one of the executives at the company said he told George about his vision for the game, and that allowed them to have many free and creative conversations regarding the game, in which Mr. Martin later used that as a base to write the overarching mythos for the world itself. He also went on to say, the mythos George created for the game was full of interesting characters and drama, along with a plethora of mystical and mysterious elements as well. That is certainly one thing George R. R. Martin is very good at. Now, like I said at the beginning of this video, I want to know what all of you think about George working on things other than The Winds of Winter. I mean, let's face it is his life after all. He should be able to do whatever he wants. My only issue is, he always says he will get the book done before anything else. He keeps saying that it will be out next year, but then another year goes by, then another year goes by. Now he's agreed to work on so many other things, I don't see how The Winds of Winter can be his main focus anymore. I should also mention, another year has gone by since George said we could lock him up if he hasn't delivered The Winds of Winter by now. For those of you who don't know what I'm referring to, let me show you something else George said back in 2019. This was when George was thinking about attending a massive science fiction convention over in New Zealand, but as always, he said it would only distract him from writing The Winds of Winter. Although George always seems to find time to visit just about every other convention around the globe, but I digress. Anyways, in the Not a Blog, George said, "As for finishing my book, I fear that New Zealand would distract me entirely too much. Best leave me here in Westeros for the nonce. But I tell you this, if I don't have The Winds of Winter in hand when I arrive in New Zealand for Worldcon, You here have my formal written permission to imprison me in a small cabin on White Island, overlooking that lake of sulfuric acid until I'm done. Well, that year flew by, and the fans made sure to remind George about what he had said. Missing that deadline by a year happened last summer. And here we are again, at yet another summer, where George still hasn't finished The Winds of Winter. It has now been several years since he said we could lock him away for not having delivered the book. Well, now it should seem very obvious why he's not getting it done. That's because he's creating other characters and other mysteries for other universes that are outside of his own, like he has for the video game Elden Ring. This isn't all that he's working on, however. He might be busy finishing The Winds of Winter, but it's not the only thing George R. R. Martin has in the works. As you all know, he is also the co-creator of House of the Dragon, although he has said he will not be writing any of its episodes, but even that's not a guarantee, because he has said things like that before. Now, besides House of the Dragon, HBO also has several other Game of Thrones successor shows in the works, which I am sure George has his hands on as well. I mean, he did just sign a massive 5-year deal with HBO. I'm sure he will be the co-creator if any of the other shows get greenlit by the network. George is also helping develop a Game of Thrones Broadway play based on the live-action adaptation of his A Song of Ice and Fire series. George R. R. Martin is involved in other titles outside of the Westeros realm as well, one of which is an HBO adaptation of Who Fears Death, a 2010 sci-fi fantasy novel. Earlier this year, it was also announced that George is heavily involved in bringing Roger Zelazny's sci-fi novel Roadmarks to the small screen. Besides this, George is also working on Wildcards books as well. At least one of these stories will be brought to life on the television screen, only it won't be at HBO. George will also be working on this behind the scenes. In the Lost Lands marks the only source material intended for a feature film with Martin involved. It was also confirmed earlier this year. Martin's fantasy short story from 1982 will be brought to life on the big screen with Paul W.S. Anderson set to direct. I will definitely look forward to that. But as you can see, George is working on so many other things, I don't see how The Winds of Winter can be his main focus. It's no wonder this book continues to get delayed year after year. Let's face it, George is a wanted man. His fame and skill as a writer has brought him more than enough work for one lifetime. Unfortunately, this only means we will have to wait even longer for the ending of A Song of Ice and Fire. That is, if we will ever see it at all. I have always been very optimistic when it comes to The Winds of Winter getting released soon, but it gets harder and harder to look at that glass half full when the years keep flying by. Let me know what your thoughts are on all of this. Do you think The Winds of Winter is still his main focus? Do you think we will get it soon? And how do you feel when his other works are getting released before the book? Leave your thoughts down below. As always, thank all of you for watching the video. I hope you have a great day. I will see you again very soon. Bye.